What's up, guys? Welcome back to FishOfHex. My name is Travis. In today's video, we're doing another email Q&A. I believe this is number 11. Now, if you're new to the channel or you're new to this series, this is where I sit down and answer as many of your guys' questions that I can within 15 to 20 minutes. And if you want to be part of this series, simply email your question to fishofhex@gmail.com and they will be answered in the order in which they're received. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our first question is, I believe, from Sammy. I didn't copy the names over from the emails during this whole outline process, so there won't be any names, but I'm pretty sure this is Sammy's email. Anyways, it says, so I thought it was part of markings on my yellow tang, but I'm pretty sure he has started HLLE, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's head and lateral line erosion. He has 2 more weeks of quarantine before going into the main display and still in hypo. I did a water change today and cleaned the tank really well. I've been feeding mixed diet of flakes, nori, seaweed pellets, and some frozen foods. He is a nice and fat, eats well. What else can I do for the HLLE? Thinking of getting antibiotics to prevent the infection. What kind do you recommend? So we'll go ahead and do this one first. Now, when it comes to the head and lateral line erosion, it's usually caused because of stressor things like stray voltage in the tank. You have the diet isn't appropriate. Hyposalinity could cause it because of the stress of being so low in salinity. Phone's freaking buzzing right now. It could also be other things. Other fish are causing the stress. It's usually an environmental thing. Now, I wouldn't recommend any kind of antibiotics because antibiotics always have a downside. They can always cause damage even while they're fixing it. So the way I've dealt with it before with a hippo tang is I just increased a more quality of diet, giving them vitamins like A, B, E, and D, I think it is. I believe that's what the vitamins were. I know if you do a quick Google search on this particular situation, they'll recommend what vitamins to go with. That's what I did a long time ago. And I just increased the diet, got rid of stress factors, and it got better. Now, that doesn't always work, but most of the time it does. And because you're still in hyposalinity, I wanted to ask you, you're not planning on going from hypo directly into the main display. I know you said you have 2 weeks of quarantine left. I'm assuming that you're going to go 2 weeks of quarantine in hypo, and then you're going to slowly ramp up over like a week back to the normal 1.025 or 2.6, and then going into display. So whatever you do, don't drop from hypo into the main display in one day. That could be pretty bad for the fish. I know that they can go down in salinity much easier than they can go up because they have to kind of adjust in their abdomen. So yeah, moving on to the next question. Also, the flame angel almost died is doing well, but has a pale colored head versus the rest of its body. Is this normal? He's probably still in hypo, right? Probably just like the other fish. He's just stressed out from the situation. He should be fine. I don't think that it was like this before. Maybe it has been since the reaction to copramine. Yeah, copper, again, stressing the fish out, just like hyposalinity. Otherwise, very active, eats well. It's hard to know what normal looks like being new. Yeah, when it comes to that fish, kind of just like the tang, once they're out of hypo and they're happy in the main display, they should be fine. What I would do if you have time and if you don't want to wait any longer is I would pull them out of hypo, make sure the tank is at the normal salinity, and keep it there for a couple weeks and see how the color and the stress and how the fish are reacting, because I'm not really sure what's in your main display already for fish. So adding these guys to an established tank with other fish would probably be stressful and make things worse. So just keep that in mind. You might want to consider extending the quarantine just to allow them adjust from the hypo. Moving on to the third paragraph here, or question in the email. Still dealing with brown stuff in my main tank. Also now red and brown stringy stuff on the sand. I don't know what else to do. Did big water changes, running protein skimmer, UV sterilizer, carbon Phosguard, and a hang on a back filter. I'm about ready to siphon the entire layer of the sand off because I'm getting so aggravated with it. I need to scrub the rock off of it too. Okay. All right. So the red, you said red and brown stringy stuff. That usually means cyanobacteria, but you said that you're using Phosguard. It's hard to tell. I have to look at the system a little bit more, but it sounds like if it's red or green and stringy, it's usually a type of cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria usually comes when you have higher levels of phosphates. So maybe consider getting rid of the Phosguard and trying some GFO and seeing what your levels are going to be. Understand that you are probably going to get a little bit of a false negative because the cyano is using up the majority of the phosphates in the water column, so you might get a false reading. So if you're still seeing the cyano, even after some of that, adding to some of that GFO, then I would just kind of replace the GFO over the next few weeks and allow it to slowly bring the phosphates down, and that that red slime should go away. Also increase the flow, manual removal. You know, you've been doing that so far. So hopefully that answers your questions, and good luck. All right, moving on to the next email. I took all of my fish out to quarantine when I got ick. It's been about 8 weeks, man. It's already starting off bad. I'm going to wait another week or two before I put them back into the tank. What is the best way to do that if you have several tanks? Should I add them all at once and spike the ammonia, or add one in one and wait a couple days? You fuckers know that I can't read, right? I thought that was pretty common knowledge. I'm an idiot, right? So when you write an email to me, make sure you use complete sentences and fucking the right words, because now I got to edit. I'm not even editing this shit out. Moving on. Okay. So when it comes to several tangs, you didn't say how many you had. So what I would do is, if you're adding them to the tank, I would add in groups of 2 or 3 and start with the bigger ones first. Wait a few days and then add work your way down to the smaller tanks. And again, don't add just one. Always add at least 2 or more at a time. That way the aggression could be spread out between the fish and you'd be good to go. Now moving on to the second part of this email. So I've upgraded my lights from the cheap ones I got to get started. So that shouldn't be the problem anymore. But I kind of neglected my tank for a few months without doing water changes, and my parameters are a little off. My question is, can I do a big water change like 50% or more, then get back into normal routine, or just keep doing what I'm doing now with my weekly 15 to 20% until it stabilizes? I've heard doing big water changes can make your tank go through a mini cycle. All right. For anybody who's looking to kind of get their tank back on track, I always recommend a 30% every other day, or every, 3 days. It depends, 3 or 4 days. Every other day or every 3 or 4 days, just to get the tank back to normal. And you want to do probably 3 or 4 of those. I wouldn't do 50% at a time because it can be a little too much depending on the what's going on in the tank, what you currently have in there for stocking. You didn't say anything about coral or anything like that. So I would just stick with 30% every other day for like a week or 2. That should get everything back to normal and you should be good to go. Again, when you do big water changes, I wouldn't say it puts you through a mini cycle. It does just throw off the water parameters if you're counting alkalinity spikes and shit like that, which I don't think you're really too concerned about at this point. Other than the email, it was pretty good. Hopefully that answers your questions. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, next question. I want to get some Wrasses for my 220-gallon bare bottom SPS build when I'm ready for fish. What genius should I be looking at that don't require sand substrate and still a form of pest control? For one, there isn't any Wrasse that doesn't require sand. Now you guys will be like, oh shit, he's got a Wrasse in his 300. Yeah, that Wrasse has been in bare bottom since the beginning. I had him back in the 125. Now he sleeps in the rock and he sleeps in the zoas. He's never slept underneath any, at the bottom glass or anything like that. Now I do have a couple clients that also have Melanoris Wrasses in their fucking phone's going off again in their bare bottom tanks, and they seem to be fine. Now with that said, I have never tried. I'll say this again. I've never tried any other Wrasse species besides Melanoris in a bare bottom tank. I was going to do a yellow coarse Wrasse before. I just didn't get one through quarantine. But I've never tried another Wrasse, so I can't give you an information on that. Now, when it comes to pest control, you shouldn't be trying to control any damn pest in your main tank. If you have a bare bottom SPS build, you should be quarantining your coral before you're putting them in there, or you're getting your coral from me, which are awesome from the 300 and don't have any fucking pests. So either way, you shouldn't be relying on a Wrasse to be pest control. You shouldn't have pests in there in the first place, so just keep that in mind. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry I can't give you the 15 million different species that might be okay without sand, but I do know that Melanoris is just fine. All right. Next email. I was wondering if you know what I could do for cyanobacteria in my saltwater tank. I've looked on your YouTube videos but didn't see anything. Yeah, I've talked about it a few times throughout the 500 and some odd damn videos. I'm not going to hate you for that, for not being able to find it. Either way, things that I've done so far, I've lowered the amount of light, fed less food, changed the water's current, did 2 water changes, cleaned the red slime best that I could with the first water change, but came back stronger. And with the second water change, I lost 2 puffers and a cleaner shrimp. I've used the Ultralife for cyanobacteria with very little effects, looking to do a second dose. I've never heard of Ultralife for treatment. I guess maybe I'm not getting out enough, or I don't deal with cyano enough. I don't use that. Clients and people that I know who've dealt with cyano before have used a ChemiClean, which has been fine. Now, I don't recommend any of that crap. When it comes to removing cyanobacteria, you got to find the food source. The food source is phosphates. Phosphates are what feed cyanobacteria. So you got to figure out how the phosphates are getting into your tank. Is it the type of food? Is it your rock? Are you dosing any kind of vitamins, nutrients, any other thing that might add excess nutrients or phosphates into the tank? So you need to find out what the source is. Now, when it comes to removing cyano, the best thing you can do is add a lot of flow. Not just change it, but add a lot of it. Siphon it out every single day. You can even use the filter sock method that I showed in a previous video. Just siphon this stuff out. That way you don't have to do a water change. Just simply removing it every day will help. And then you want to find the phosphate source and get that down. You can add GFO to help bring the phosphates down, but be careful on how much you use because you might strip the tank and you can go through, you can have other problems. Also, make sure your nitrates are in an appropriate level. If you're at 0 nitrates, and then you can have a mismatch balance within the aquarium. So make sure that your nitrates are between 3 to 5 ppm and that they're staying around there. And then you can have a little bit easier of taking care of your phosphates. So yeah, I'm not sure what Ultralife is, and I'm going to look it up. So yeah, that's my answers. Hopefully that helps. Okay, next question. I think I've been dealing with diatoms on the rocks for some time now. So I was scrubbing the rocks and cleaning a lot to try to get rid of it. Only thing I changed was adding Phosguard in the filter to try to get rid of brown. Now looks like I have dino on the sand. I don't dose anything like that. I only have 2 nems and shrimp in there right now. All fish are still in QT. With the shape of my tank, it would be very difficult to manually remove dino without tearing down the whole tank. What should I do? Okay. First thing, why are you trying to clean diatoms? Diatoms are natural in the cycling process. You shouldn't be trying to clean those off. Just let the tank do its own thing. Now that that's out of the way, so basically what I'm getting here is you had the brown algae of diatoms on the rocks. So then you went ahead and you added Phosguard, which is a phosphate media, and you probably plummeted your phosphates to 0 using too much of it. And given that, you probably are doing water changes and you're getting your nutrients or your nitrates down as well. So what happened is you bottomed out your nitrates and your phosphates, definitely your phosphates, and now you have dino growing on the sand bed as a consequence to having 0 nutrients in the tank. Now, getting rid of dino is pretty simple the majority of the time. It comes down to getting your nutrients back up. Adding the NO3 and PO4, I sell that shit on my website. It's nitrates and phosphates. Dosing per the directions on there. Testing daily. I have a whole video on that stuff. And getting your nutrients back. Getting your nitrates between 3 to 5 ppm and getting your phosphates up to 1 ppm at least. That will help the dino. You want to go in there and remove it manually every day using the filter sock method that I've talked about in previous videos. And yeah, it's going to, now that you have dino in there, you have to get the tank back on track. Don't add any fish. You got to get the nutrients back up if that's what it is. If you could send me a picture of it and just say, hey, this is regarding the question in the video, I would be able to tell you if it's definitely dino or not. Not what species of dino, but at least confirm that it is or isn't. And again, the most common causes is lack of nutrients. The biodiversity dies in the tank, and then that's how dino kind of takes over. So I've had it in the 300. I've talked about it before, and it was my own fault because I didn't pay attention to the tank on my quote-unquote vacation when I was still home and looking at the tank, but just didn't do anything. It is what it is. So yeah. Get your nutrients up again. That stuff is on my website if you want to buy it from me. If not, you can go spend more money on Bulk Reef Supply or some other site. Just get the nutrients back up. Don't overfeed. Don't do any of that crap. You want to dose nitrates and phosphates so you can properly add the correct amount and you can monitor it and be consistent, because you got to be consistent. You can't just go from 3 to 5 or go to 5 ppm nitrates one day and then that shit bottoms out within a couple days and you're like, oh crap, now I got to dose more. You got to be consistent. You're gonna have to test at least every day or every other day with a reliable test kit like Red Sea and the HANA checker for phosphates. That's what I recommend anyways. And then be consistent in keeping those levels and manual removal, and yeah, it'll go away. All right, so our last question of the video. Hello, I can't figure out how to get my nitrates to a safe level. They are running at 50 ppm and my phosphates stay at 0. What can I do to fix this? Thanks, Daryl. Okay, Daryl. First thing you want to do is you want to get your phosphates up. There is a correct ratio that really helps the tank balance itself out. So dose phosphates to get those levels up to at least a 0.05. At least get it to there so you can have some trace of phosphates. It's really going to help with the getting the nitrates at the correct level. Next thing you want to do is figure out why the hell it's at 50 ppm. Now, are you testing with the Red Sea? I'd like to know what test kit you're using. Maybe you're getting a false reading. When you get levels like that, I recommend that everybody either double, triple check, even try different test kits to see what you're getting before you start making any changes to the tank. And yeah, you can do water changes to bring that down. You can implement something like bio pellets, but I don't recommend people doing that. I would do it more naturally between water changes. A big refugium is always good with macroalgae growing. That's going to do a ton for your nitrates. And then cut back on your feeding. I don't know what your bio load is. That was it for the email. So it's kind of hard to see what you have going on in your tank. But ideally, you just want to remove the nitrates as much as you can and get your phosphates at an appropriate level to help balance the tank out. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. And guys, that's about it for this video. I know it seemed like we only answered a few questions. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. They were longer answers, so they took a little bit longer. I'll try to get another video like this out next week. I'm trying to get content created as much as I can because hunting season is October 5th. And, you know, I might be gone for who knows how long trying to fill those tags. It just depends on how it goes. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, again, you can put them in the comment section or you can email me if you want to be part of the video. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.